If I lost everything tonight, my savings, my investments, my house, and woke up tomorrow with nothing but a job, mate, this is exactly how I'd rebuild my life in Australia. No fancy tricks, no get-rich-quick nonsense, no crypto hype. Just a simple plan I genuinely trust with my own future, step by step from day 1 right through to year 10. See, the mistake most people make when they're starting from zero is thinking the first thing they need is a higher income. But honestly, that's usually not the biggest problem. The real problem is not knowing where your money's actually going. If you don't have control over that, earning more just ends up meaning you spend more without even noticing. So for the first month, I wouldn't even be thinking about investing. I'd be focused on one thing, getting complete visibility over my money. For those first 30 days, I'd open 2 bank accounts. One would be my everyday spending account, and the other would be a separate high-interest savings account with no fees and ideally no debit card attached. The actual interest rate matters, sure, but the separation matters even more. Out of sight really is out of mind when it comes to money. Then I'd track absolutely everything I spend. Every coffee, every streaming subscription I forgot I had, every Uber Eats order that seemed harmless at the time. It's funny because most people who actually do this realize they're leaking hundreds of dollars every month without even noticing. And that's not pocket change, that's the money that kickstarts everything else. By the end of that first month, my goal would simply be to have a $1,000 buffer sitting safely in that savings account, untouched unless it's a genuine emergency. Once that little buffer's there, the next few months are all about doing 2 things at the same time, getting rid of any high-interest debt and building a proper emergency fund. If I've got a credit card charging 20% interest, that's getting smashed first because, mate, you simply can't outinvest that kind of interest. The maths just doesn't work. Once that's gone, I'd build up enough cash to cover about 3 to 6 months of basic living expenses. That's not some magic number, but it's a solid guideline because life happens. Your car breaks down, you lose work for a while, or your laptop dies. Without a buffer, you're straight back into debt and you're basically back at square one. I'd also use this time to learn a skill that could actually increase my income. Maybe it's a trade ticket, maybe a certificate, maybe something in healthcare or tech. Australia regularly has skill shortages in areas like those, and even a small pay rise today can make a massive difference once it compounds over the next 10 years. By around the 6-month mark, if my emergency fund's sorted, the debt's gone, and my income's improving, then I'd finally start investing properly. Nothing complicated, just a simple, low-cost diversified index fund that tracks a broad section of the Australian or global share market. Even if I could only afford $50 a week, I'd start there. That's roughly $2,600 a year. Historically, diversified share markets have averaged somewhere around 7 to 8% a year over really long periods, although that's history, not a guarantee. Markets go up, they go down, and returns vary. But just to give you an idea, investing $50 a week consistently over 20 years at those kinds of long-term averages could grow into well over $100,000. Increase that to $150 a week as your income grows, and suddenly the numbers become a whole lot more interesting. Around this point, I'd also check my super fund properly. Most people never look at the fees they're paying, but even a 1% difference in fees over several decades can cost you tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Spending 10 minutes checking your super could honestly be one of the highest paying things you ever do. Before I got too serious about investing though, I'd make sure the whole plan was protected. It's not the exciting part, but it's one of the smartest. If I've got a family depending on me or financial commitments that would be hard to cover, I'd check what insurance I actually need. I'd also look at what's already included inside my super because a lot of Australian super funds already provide life insurance and income protection by default, and most people don't even know it's there. Building wealth is one thing. Making sure one bad event doesn't wipe it all out is just as important. Now once I get into years 3 to 5, this is where I'd probably do something that surprises a lot of people. I wouldn't automatically rush out trying to buy a house. Property can absolutely be a great investment, but it isn't always the best next step for someone rebuilding from zero. In some situations, continuing to grow your investments while renting can actually put you in a stronger financial position than stretching yourself with a tiny deposit and a massive mortgage. Of course, it depends on your circumstances, the city you live in, and what the property market looks like at the time. That's why I'd sit down with real numbers instead of emotions and work out whether buying a home genuinely makes sense for me. By years 5 to 10, the biggest challenge isn't earning more money anymore. It's making sure you don't quietly spend every pay rise you get. This is where lifestyle inflation catches people. Bigger salary, bigger apartment, newer car, more takeaway, nicer holidays, and before you know it, you're earning more but saving exactly the same. I try to keep my lifestyle pretty close to where it was a few years earlier and let the gap between what I earn and what I spend keep growing. Because that's the gap that creates wealth, not the salary itself. The good news is none of this relies on luck, and it definitely doesn't rely on some secret investment strategy. Australia already gives you a pretty solid foundation with one of the higher minimum wages in the world and compulsory super working away in the background. The people who build real wealth usually aren't the ones with the cleverest strategy. They're the ones who stay consistent during the years when the progress feels slow and the numbers still look small. That's exactly when most people give up. So if I had to start over tomorrow with absolutely nothing, mate, this is the order I'd follow every single time. Build a buffer, wipe out bad debt, increase my income, protect the plan, invest consistently, and only then make the bigger decisions like buying property when the foundation is actually solid. Starting from zero isn't what stops most people. Giving up after the first couple of years usually is. If this gave you a clearer idea of how I'd rebuild from scratch in Australia, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications because I've got plenty more breakdowns like this coming. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.